score 40-36. While Judge Barbara Perez has it 39-37. All for the winner by unanimous decision, the crown jewel.
You know it's AB, always balling, always boarding, a lot of bills. You know what's going on, man. You know, shout out to Crown Jewels Boxing, man. You know, my people. You know, they get it in over there, straight up.
Lamont Peterson giving a shout out to CrownJewelBoxing.com.
What's good, YouTube? Crown Jewel from Crown Jewel Boxing. Back at y'all with another gem. Before we get started tonight, I must pay tribute to a fallen icon in the fight game. One of the most storied referees in the history of the game. Had a career spanning from the 60s all the way to the early 2000s. Has reffed over 100 world title fights. Was a judge with his own court show. A Marine, and just an all-around good guy, and he's going to be sorely missed by the sport of boxing. And I'm talking about the legendary referee, Millslane. So we're going to start off tonight by having a tribute to the legendary Millslane. Rest easy, champ. Like I said, you'll be sorely missed. With that being said, Gervonta Tank Davis still extremely active via social media and YouTube, and some things said by him involving Terence Crawford as well as Floyd Mayweather that I want to speak on tonight. First, we all know that there's been a lot of negative things being posted via social media about Floyd Mayweather by him over the last several months. So he was asked yesterday, you know, what's the status of him and Floyd's relationship? How does he feel about Floyd? And he said, you know, he truly admires Floyd. He appreciates everything, you know, that Floyd has done for him, as well as Mayweather Promotions, and there's no bad blood. It was just time for him to take the training wheels off and take his career into his own hands. And I think we can only commend him for that. He actually said this first fight that he's promoting on his own GTD Promotions along with Showtime is a trial run. That leads me to believe that if it doesn't go well, you'll see him back with Mayweather Promotions in the future. And he did say he didn't rule out working with them in the future. That's first thing. Number two, he has some very choice things to say about Terence Crawford that raised a lot of eyebrows. He first said that he could see himself moving up to 47 and to get a belt. And when asked who'd he like to fight, he said he'd like to get Terence Crawford up out of there. You know, implying that he could stop Terence Crawford. Well, he doubled down on that today. I heard him on a live stream today where he said Terence Crawford didn't have a chin. Y'all know what would happen if I hit him on the chin. And I think I'd stop him in 6 rounds. Big words coming from a little guy. We all know that Terence Crawford's a future Hall of Famer, multi-weight world champion. I think former world champion 130 pounds, undisputed world champion 135 pounds, world champion 140 pounds, and current world champion 147 pounds. So this is a legend, no doubt, in the sport right now, icon, and a first ballot Hall of Famer. But Gervonta Tank Davis believes that much in himself that he feels that he can go to 147 and knock Terence Crawford out. Now, at first, you know, that raises a lot of eyebrows because it doesn't sound right. You think of a little guy knocking out a much bigger guy. But if you've been around the sport a little while and think back, Terence Crawford was once a 130-pounder during the beginning of his career, just as Gervonta Davis was. And you think back of a common opponent, Yuriorkis Gamboa. If you remember that fight, Gamboa visibly shook and hurt Terence Crawford. I think Tank Davis is a bigger puncher than Gamboa. And we also seen when Tank fought Gamboa, Gamboa was unable to hit Tank with anything that bothered him. So you would have to think logically that he at least carries enough pop where that could be something that could, not saying it's going to happen, but it's possible. I think, when you think about it, he probably would be strong enough to hurt Terence Crawford. Now, the question you have to ask, you've never seen Tank hit by anybody as big and strong as Terence Crawford. So the question would be, could Tank take Terence's punch? Every indication is that Tank has a rock-solid chin, but again, he hasn't fought a fighter that big at this point. Mario Barrios was the closest thing to. I don't think he's as big and strong as Terence Crawford, so that remains to be seen. But I wouldn't take that as just lip service. I think that may be something he genuinely believes in his heart and, would try to do in the future. Do I think it'll ever happen? Absolutely not, because I don't think Terence Crawford will still be at 147 when Gervonta Davis eventually gets there, if and when he does get there. But it was interesting to hear him say that. And like I said, it's not as far-fetched as it may sound on first listen if you break it down. Beyond that, the friction going on, a lot of venom being spewed from him towards Terence Crawford. He compared his upcoming first promotion that he's fighting on January 7th to the upcoming first promotion, I think this coming weekend, of Terence Crawford, where he's partnering with BLK Prime. Tank's card is a much more impressive, much more stacked, much larger crowd that I think will sell a whole lot more than Terence Crawford will sell on BLK Prime. Gervonta Tank Davis's card is reminiscent to the cards of like Don King back in the 90s and early 2000s. The only other promotional company that's even come close to putting on cards of that magnitude would be maybe Golden Boy, and I don't even think they put on cards at the level of which this card that Gervonta Davis is putting on in Washington, D.C. on January 7th. You have himself, a mega pay-per-view star in the sport of boxing, in the main event. You probably have the hottest young fighter in boxing as the co-feature in Philadelphia's own Jaron Boots Ennis. I think he's 28-0 with 26 knockouts. I mean, he's been calling out the world champions for 2 or 3 years at 147. It, for all intents and purposes, seems to be the heir apparent at that of the welterweight division. And, he seems, in my opinion, ready to take over the division right now. I mean, I don't see anybody outside of Errol Spence and Terence Crawford even giving this guy much of a challenge right now. So he's on the card. You have multi-division, multi-time world champion Boo Boo Andrade is on the card. Recently signed to PBC. One of the most duck fighters of the last 15 years in Demetrious Boo Boo Andrade. That's another mega fight on the card. Then you have former world champion Lamont Peterson, who's from Washington, D.C., will be on the card, making a comeback in his hometown. So, that's another big name on the card. You have his brother, perennial lightweight contender, Anthony Peterson, who's now competing at super lightweight on the card. You have, and you also have DC's brightest young star coming up right now in Jahlil Major Hackett. I mean, it's just a stacked card that you can probably arrive at maybe like 7:30, 8 o'clock and just watch great fights from then all the way on through the main event. Terence Crawford's card, on the other hand, has no fight of consequence on that card besides him and Avanesian. And we don't even know who Avanesian is, and I think it's a pretty good bet that we feel like Terence Crawford's going to walk right through him. So, I mean, in a promotional aspect, if we put Tank and Terence Crawford head-to-head in their first start, Tank has a big lead, and he's letting it be known. So with that being said, it's very interesting to hear, Tank talk about, his future plans. There's also something that came out where he said he felt like he would only box maybe 2 to 4 more times. I don't believe that. I think it's camp talk. Everybody knows fighters get irritable and cranky while in camp. You're away from your family. It's uncomfortable. You're not eating what you're used to eating. You're cutting weight. You're not around your lady friend. Like, just a lot of things are different about camp that make you uncomfortable. It's like one of those things where every time you do it, you feel like, man, this might be my last time wanting to go through this. And, you know, once you get through the fight, which I anticipate him, you know, having a whole lot of fight left in him, being victorious, winning and getting the glory, you know, I don't anticipate him continuing to feel that way. I think that's a thought he's speaking on based off the emotion of being in camp right now. So I don't believe that. Also, I'm very excited to hear him say, as soon as he's finished with the two Garcias and Hector and Ryan, he wants, without a shadow of a doubt, Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson. In my opinion, outside of Earl Spence, Terence Crawford, those are the biggest fights that can be made in boxing. And I like the fact that he's continuing to say he wants them. He looks like he means it, and they're saying they'll oblige him. The last thing I want to talk about is Bill Haney, was he pump faking? We saw a live with him and Shakur Stevenson talking about how they could move Vasil Lomachenko out of the way and have Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson next, if that's what Shakur wanted. Shakur made it known to Bill, no problem. I'm going to call my manager and tell him I want the fight, and you're saying you can move Lomachenko out the way and you'd rather fight me. The fight will happen. That's how they ended it. Well, from what I'm hearing, the fight between Devin Haney and Lomachenko is going to be announced in the very near future. And if that's the case, the guys who are always accusing everybody else of capping, and Bill and Devin Haney, seem to be doing the capping this time. But that's a developing story, and we'll see how it plays out. Until next time, keep your hands up, your chin down, and your ass off the floor. Peace.